The International Olympic Committee has the honor of announcing that the games of the 32nd Olympiad in 2020 are awarded to the city of Tokyo.
You might know that the Tokyo Olympics committed to be one of the most sustainable games ever. And they also committed specifically to source sustainable timber that is considerate of indigenous rights.
If we do not address these challenges here and now, we will be hit by them very soon.
The Olympic organizers haven't been properly monitoring compliance with this policy. In fact, they don't really know where their timber is actually coming from.
Atang hiran tuno dihin pelokbo kanilaw akan ninang hino ngayon kayo lang anda geri ni tay
ngayon aya ko kay maap dahin pelok ko pelok kudoh ko ake kulang dap ngayon pelok pahaplah na kami telok ni pelok putaw na man ngayon pelok kami telok putaw na ha lang nyata kami telok ninang ni.
Six % of the planet's plant and animal species live on the island of Borneo. Like the Amazon, these rainforests are the Earth's lungs. For over 4,000 years, these ancient forests have been guarded by indigenous groups. Known as the Dayaks. Nowadays, land theft and deforestation are the biggest threat to the 6 million Dayaks that live across the island of Borneo. Indonesian Borneo, also known as Kalimantan, or the Island of Fire, is at the epicenter of this pressing conflict. Before the invention of the Indonesian state in 1945, the Dayak moved from place to place, guided by natural omens. This all changed when they were forced by the government to move for the sake of national development. From their remote territories to the more accessible shores of the big river. My research brought me to East Kalimantan, to the Dayak Bahau of Long Ithun. The Dayak Bahau are facing a fierce crisis. Logging companies are stealing their lands.
7 members.
Menyeluruh kecamatan Lumpangnya. Itu arealnya, tapi
first they go to these communities and they try to make them an offer. We'll buy your land. But when the community doesn't want to sell, the company has all these other kinds of things they can do. They can get someone else to sign the papers who doesn't have any claim to the land, but okay, their friends in government will legitimize that transaction, whether it's by making a title deed for that person or making a map that puts this land in their territory. So this is something we see happening in different parts of Indonesia, and especially in East Kalimantan, where this Long Isun community is based. These companies really do have some quite devious ways to acquire lands from communities that would rather they not even be there.
The Dayak Bahau of Long Isun face the constant threat of land theft because they don't want to sell their lands. The government worked with logging companies to make their own map. This process created many local land conflicts.
Tangkara ini tidak doan peta batas kada, tapi kami jenjang menolong dua peta batas. Nah, sedangkan batas Long Isun batas alam. Keberani-berani dia nak tung nak awala lepas pana men puncak ngalang segala huwena mudik huwena mulang huwena kan dia lepas pana.
The Dayak Bahau of Long Isun made their own map to prove that they are the owners of their lands.
Di mana? Oh, di sini 270.
Tapi lang anak yang kuna na nuaran deh. Jalan nenek moyang begitu tadi. Ya.
Peninang akurasi na anak. 7 meter ya kira-kira kemana dinan. Oke. Kalau titik hinan atau hitik lain juga huruf ini dia kan huruf.
Di sekolah hem het di sekolah tadi sekolah. Gua tadi sekolah pengalaman tung.
These maps showed every corner of their territory had a function. There were areas for farming, sacred sites for burial and customary practices, and grounds for hunting and fishing. During this 6-month mapping process, I became especially close to 3 Bahau brothers. Tekwan, Samuel, and Hufat. It was they who taught me that for the Bahau, healthy lands translate into a collective sense of well-being. Tekwan used to work for a logging company as a spy, but switched sides to lead the local activist movement.
Saya bekerja di sebuah perusahaan besar, PT Belayan, dan saya adalah bekas pemain lama di perusahaan dan saya tahu baik buruknya di perusahaan itu, dan saya digaji besar dan saya kumpul uang. Saya terpikir bahwa berdosa juga mengumpul uang banyak tetapi merusak alam, dan saya kembali lagi membela lingkungan, saya bela alam ini. Bagaimana di tempat saya jangan sampai rusak.
Samuel works with the village youth and always has a good joke at the tip of his tongue.
Alah, Harin. Ni kuneha ngayan lahan maring ak malek hini ni. Tutup pah na ani ni. Akna ngayan parkir mobil, ngayan parkir motor, ngayak mate ere ngayan helipad ko. Kota sam maran akna. Nah, ti.
Hufat is the head of the village forest police. He spends most of his time in the depths of the jungle and is widely respected for his vast knowledge.
Saya kan nggak punya televisi, nggak punya radio, jadi seperti suara burung, suara binatang-binatang, itulah hiburan saya. Saya senang. Sekarang berubah. Nggak kita lihat seperti dulu. Yang kita ketemu cuma penyengat. Nih. Nah.
Away from the village, each family has a farm in the forest, which provides them with their daily needs.
Menurut saya, cucu saya memang bergantung pada hutan juga. Kalau kakeknya hidup dari hutan, pasti biarpun jadi sarjana, larinya ke hutan juga.
The Dayak Bahau practice rotational farming, where you work a piece of land for a season, then leave it to lie fallow for the land to recover. Whilst the land is healing, another piece of land is opened up for next season's crop. It's these ancient techniques that allow the forest to rest, regrow, and become more resilient. Incredibly, these cycles can last 35 years. This means that the same piece of land won't be used for a whole generation. But the moment companies invade indigenous lands, these replenishing cycles are broken.
Merapihin ka mapah talani.
Kera ini sama kelang tihakui. Naprak tanah kudai. Naprak kayu alam tanah kudai. Akhirnya kurun dade. Kera ini jadi naharu tih nyadui halam tanah kui halam wilayah kui. Karena nun dah lo opah kena perusahaan jadi nun pun perjanjian perusahaan mendah lo dah jentek lang an perusahaan nyadui mendah lo duan perusahaan sang mihil batang belian lak hino batang belian hianti ti apa kena perusahaan ni sayu pamoh perusahaan ni aya ara amoh dah.
Aku menutupi kegiatan perusahaan terhadap pemerintah Kabupaten Kutai Barat Taguati. Yang harus produksi dah 125.000 kubik per tahun. Tapi cuma kelapor saya 10.000. Aku pimpin gerakan untuk mengecek tanah atau wilayah adat Lungisun lang teh angwe besanga supaya nak jen terulang kembali, hingga aku sendiri memberi surat dan menyetop dah stop jangan usah pulau nyadi ini. Dan polisi geri akui teh penjara lalu anda tahan dan sangat tidak adil selama 109 hari udah tahan ti.
If you're a company, it can be very difficult to acquire lands from a community that's united against what you are proposing to do. But if you can chip away at their solidarity and win over or turn even just a small group within the community, then very often you can succeed at gaining control of their lands, even if most people within the community are still opposed to what you want to do. And that's what we're seeing all over the country, where there's hundreds or even thousands of these land conflicts between indigenous communities and large corporations.
Indonesia is ranked as one of the most corrupt countries in Asia. Politicians buy votes and compromise communities for their own personal gain.
Kepentingan politik yang di Indonesia bisa dilihat bahwa misalnya calon atau anggota dewan terpilih itu 50-60% adalah mantan direktur atau direktur aktif perusahaan-perusahaan perkebunan kelapa sawit. Data-data angka yang tidak muncul ke publik dan publik tidak tahu kalau bayangkan sebuah industri besar ini hanya dikuasai oleh 25-27 individu keluarga orang paling kaya di Indonesia.
Today in Indonesia, politicians are delaying the recognition of indigenous people's rights. If these rights were to be recognized, this would present a major obstacle to land acquisition and the current concession model.
Many investors, a lot of investors, when they come to me, almost of them, they always complain about land acquisition. I will push my minister, my governor, my mayor to help clearing this problem. When I was a governor, we have project Jakarta Outer Ring Road, but it stopped because 143 families do not accept with the compensation price. So last year, I invite them for lunch and dinner for time. This is me. I invite them and then we talk about the problem and the problem is clear.
Banyak bohongnya, banyak bohong. Mau suruh kalau kami masuk bikin rumah, anak-anak sekolah kami tanggung. Di daerah lain itu sudah ada itu, jadi kita tahu dari situ. Itu bikin kita tidak mau menyerah. Maksud kita itu bertahan, melawan. Tapi otak ini tidak sanggup. Kita manusia ini bisa punya anak banyak, tapi tanah tidak beranak.
Oh, jadi ya masyarakat banyak ini pernah bertanya, kemana perusahaan itu membawa kayunya itu. Karena masyarakat tidak tahu kayu diambil di mana dia bawa.
Saya pikir bahwa penting juga bahwa ada bukti, yang bukti ini lalu dunia bisa melihat. Dan perusahaan dan pemerintah tidak bisa sebunging, tidak bisa.
Roh nenek moyang kita, kemungkinan mereka marah karena kita tidak tahu orang curi kayu masuk hutan kita tanpa izin gitu. Kalau dia yang pergi mengikuti kayu kita, ikut kita yang tahu di mana kayu kita dibawa.
Currently, the Dayak Bahau of Long Isun are attempting to gain legal recognition as an indigenous peoples. Only when they're recognized in law that they become the legal owners of their lands. Of course, these processes are extremely tiring and taxing, so community cohesion is absolutely critical. And this is where our journey began. Our mission to follow the stolen timber provided the opportunity to demystify the forces behind the devastation and at the same time strengthen the resilience of the community.
Dah kalau nana kau dah kau nan ngelemeh ni dah kalau nyupan dah kalau hipun pulau bo pulau huku pulau kering dah hokna dah nungui ku ni ma pulau.
Before embarking on our journey, Mama Yek, the spiritual leader, offered a final blessing. These rites serve to repel spiritual danger. The rainforest is home to many guardian spirits, which, if neglected, may become aggressive. Our first goal was to track down traces of illegal logging on Long Isun's ancestral land. After a short boat trip, we followed the ancestral paths deep into the jungle. The Dayak Bahau know their lands like the back of their hands. The paths, once used by the ancestors, are engraved into the minds of the next generation. And it's these paths that orientate them around their vast territory.
Ditetes nih kuri ere dosis kawah. Ya. Soalnya ini obat kalau tidak mungkin menceret juga. Dia dingin, alami.
400 people live in Long Isun, and yet this community cares for 80,000 hectares of forest, an area equivalent to the size of New York City. It was only through spending time with them that I came to understand their intimate relationship with the forest.
Itu dia.
Tapi apa kita lakukan ketika ada orang yang masuk tanpa izin?
Tidak ada orang yang masuk tanpa izin. Zaman nenek moyang dulu belum ada perusahaan.
Tapi mungkin ada orang lain yang datang untuk mengambil kayu kita.
Tidak ada, orang belum kerja kayu itu.
Ya.
Sampai di belakang rumah.
Kampung.
Belakang kampung. Hutan. Semua hutan. Begitu juga babinya, binatangnya, segala lembu, segala badak. Karena sebelum habis kita perlu melindungi hutan. Jadi jangan Anda kira saya di sini mau jadi babi kah, mau dilindungi di salai di api ini kah?
Ya.
Orang bule hidup di Bajang.
The next day, we came to the outer edge of their territory.
Dia bilang dilarang menebang di kawasan lindung, menebang pohon di kawasan lindung.
It was here that we encountered the roads that the logging company had made with heavy machinery to extract Longisun's timber. So we knew the danger wasn't far away. And everyone was becoming nervous. And for good reason. Tekwan was arrested last time he confronted the loggers. And worldwide, over 200 indigenous activists are killed every single year in similar confrontation. These crimes are rarely exposed.
Pasti itu kayu dari Besangak sudah ya kasih tahu siapa yang punya, siapa orang yang ini yang membelinya, tanya baik-baik ya. Jangan harus berbuat kasar di sana, tidak baik. Kalau menurut saya begitu. Setelah dia kasih tahu baru kita jalan lagi kemana arah kayu itu pergi. Hukum rimba.
Tapi di kota ya hukum lain.
Ya, hukum lain.
We we didn't dare to confront the loggers. For the loggers working on Longistuan's land, this process is fully legal, as the government does not recognise indigenous people's rights, nor do they require community consent. So this means the loggers are in possession of legal certificates issued by the government, when in fact the wood is stolen from Dayak lands, and these certificates just serve to legalise timber theft. We stuck to the plan and followed the wood. This led us from their ancestral lands to the company's regional depot.
Tanhil kayo na tang banghe. Mesin lang man panaw.
Inang to aja tan kayo ni ke tengah-tengah ke di pak tu.
Ti pabale bujuk wan puntun.
Rasa di kuninang no ini belang yang kayo te. Geri.
Ha, menurut hitungan-hitungan kuat 10 duman, 5 duman, pah nak jan berkuat. Ha, nunik teguh terus tekun cara dak kayo lumayan.
Menurut aku, dia datang 10 kalau terpenyuh.
Lampat nanti tanah kalau rumah tak bisa ere tak jam, tak duan. Ya dan sampai tak ngenap ere dak ngasam laan. Lampat ting tak awet tak nang gohna.
When the logs arrive at the depot, the bottom of the trunk is tagged with a red label and a white label. The red one guarantees the width of the log is above a certain size, whilst the white one has a QR code, so theoretically you can track the origin of the log. As our logs travel downstream, more and more wood gets deposited from other log ponds to form larger and larger rafts of floating logs. And so whilst following our wood, we saw the landscape was beginning to change dramatically. What happens to these lands after the valuable timber's been taken?
Perusahaan ini memiliki kewajiban seharusnya membuat dan menanam kembali lahan-lahan tersebut dengan pohon-pohon atau tanaman spesies lokal sejenis. Pembalakan kayu, karena dibandingkan mereka harus menunggu sampai 20 tahun baru bisa menebang kembali, mereka memilih membuat perusahaan perkebunan kelapa sawit untuk menanam areal tersebut dengan kelapa sawit. Karena kelapa sawit dalam waktu 5 tahun sudah bisa menghasilkan. Pemilik loggingnya atau pemilik perusahaan pembalakan kayunya juga adalah pemilik perusahaan-perusahaan sawit.
After forests are logged, they're classified as degraded. The change in classification means the state can now rent out the forest to palm oil companies. crucially, when forests become palm oil plantations, the rights of local communities to their lands are taken away forever. This means that not only have they lost their lands, they now have to work on the plantations just to survive.
Ya, industri kelapa sawit ini nilainya sangat besar, melibatkan 12 miliar dolar. Ini duit yang sangat besar ini melibatkan investor-investor atau industri keuangan, bank-bank dari Amerika Serikat, dari Eropa. Tidak hanya membangun kebun, tetapi juga membangun industri hilir seperti Unilever, Cargill, kemudian Nestle, PepsiCo, kemudian Procter & Gamble.
Having checked the certificates of the logging company working on Long Isun's land, we discovered our timber was travelling straight to the heart of the Indonesian timber industry, to the port city of Samarinda. The city is situated on the mouth of the Mahakam River and flows directly into the Pacific Ocean. It's ideally located to ship the island's natural resources overseas to the global market.
Orang busukan ini masuk ke kota kan? Nah, pada tua, kau ada temusau nah? Ini susu, ada dinas-dinas.
The logs float directly to the local sawmill factory in Samarinda. We took a boat to take a closer look.
Ini kayunya mau dibawa kemana, Pak?
Mau dikirim ini, masukkan kontainer baru dikirim.
At the local sawmill, we found the same stamps as on our logs. We checked the company's certificates of this sawmill and the logging company working on Long Isun's land. Both companies were certified as sustainable and green. More and more companies want to be labelled as sustainable, as this gives them access to the most profitable markets. Of course, this means their operations are meant to adhere to the highest human rights and environmental standards. To guarantee this, every single year, companies are inspected by independent auditors. We checked the company audits, and sure enough, the auditors reported the conflict with Long Isun. But they gave the green label anyway.
One big issue when it comes to inspection is the economic interest. So a company using a label or a certificate needs to hire an inspection body, but the inspection body is most of the time a privately organized company who has an interest to getting this contract next year as well. So actually that's a race to the bottom. The less strict you are, the more likely you get more customers. But that's what certification schemes are actually made for. They're made for checking the supply chain from the very beginning to the end. However, in our research, we found out that certification scheme in itself have inherent flaws. That starts from weak standards, from weak inspection or even a lack of inspection, lack of transparency, lack of traceability, and most of the time they have very industry-heavy decision-making processes.
Tempel kuri.
Nah, yang kalau mana keren nunik tarak nah.
Benda ngotek ni kan bukan hikun batas ini jam. Arana kau
Maring lim
usaha.
ka kuninang kan nunik so. Ling kateh telan negeri.
Jepang, Hino tu negara lang. Dah keren.
Tang na kapal lagi kata. Nun perlu negeri na nun ini perlu. Aku jam budak. Kan?
Woi, hidup perlu negeri don.
We followed the trucks leaving the sawmill to a nearby container port. Once certified green, the sawmill can trade their timber to the premium markets of the US, Europe, and Japan. But when the timber is supplied to the trading companies, it becomes really difficult to track.
Ni ko mora bahan menyemit din pelok lang hipun kayo hiak ni alang bo lang hipun mainok tanang ai pelok nai ti kering nah akai bara kui inok pelok tai diingat na dahuk semoga akai kui alang ala pelok secara paksa mantana din menghalalkan secara menghalalkan segala cara lalu memusnahkan keturunan pelok. Ya semoga usaha dah musnah pun kena metiah. Pelok ni musnah usun tanah. Karena pesan terakhir tu. Inok berada ini hilang menggunakan semoga negara no akan enggak musibah. Tsunami atau banjir atau angin puting beliung akan menimpa negara dah akan menimpa umat dah. Nantilah akai ku din bo lang hipun kayo kanan kayo ni dia kini tek bo lang hipun nunaran ada sohok banjir lang menghantam umat dah balai lang mayul parah kalau hasina aran kanan sina lang ara uang.
For my friends, they had seen enough and wanted to go home to the forest. But I owed it to them to conclude our investigation. The sawmill shipping data revealed most of the timber exports were going to Japan, to a timber trading company called Sumitomo Forestry. Sumitomo Forestry is the Olympic organizers' principal timber supplier. So it was likely most of our wood was used in the construction sites of the 2020 Olympic Games. And it turned out we weren't the only ones looking for answers.
One of the things that we did was we actually went to the Tokyo Olympic venue construction sites and we took photos over multiple days of the process of using tropical plywood to mold the concrete foundation. In Japan, actually, this kind of tropical plywood has a stamp on it. So we took our cameras and we zoomed in and we were able to actually identify the name of the company that supplied this tropical plywood. And by doing that, we were able to trace back to the actual forested areas that were the source of this plywood flowing into the Olympic construction sites. We got the organizers to confess that tropical wood was actually used in nearly every new Olympic sports venue. And we actually found that they were using tropical wood from Borneo, coming from very controversial companies that were linked to land conflicts, to land rights abuses, to tax fraud, and to deforestation. And there have actually also been serious allegations of bribery for obtaining permits, as well as using fire to clear land.
In fact, greenwashing is one of the biggest challenges we're facing these days, because if you check websites of corporations and companies, you get the feeling that everyone is green, everyone is sustainable, and everyone is responsible. It is important that each of us making conscious decision when you go to the supermarket, but it's definitely not fair to put the whole burden on the shoulder of consumers, because these days supply chains are super complex. Companies are sourcing raw materials from all over the world. So we cannot decide in the supermarket if it's safe or if it's not safe. That is the responsibility of a company. That is, in the end, the responsibility of the politician. We need laws to check that there is no deforestation in our products, there is no human rights abuses and ecosystem destruction in our product.
In the course of this investigation, we submitted 11 complaints to organizations like the Tokyo Olympic Committee, the United Nations, and certification bodies like the Forest Stewardship Council. So far, only one of these complaints has been resolved.
Nah, ini obat banyak lagi kegunaannya ini. Ini obat untuk kanker. Punya walaupun daunnya beda
dan bisa
dimakan. Bisa makan juga nih, enggak ada juga gandeng-gandeng.
Tapi ada dulu
enggak mabuk, namanya obat. Pokoknya penyakit dalam. Obat untuk luka. Enggak obat ini nih. Obat semua ini. Apakah kami ini nggak sayang tanah kami, nggak sayang wilayah kami ini? Digarap perusahaan, digusur seperti babi aja. Makanya saya mati atau hidup saya mati di perbatasan, nggak akan menyerah saya.
Every time a tree is lost and an indigenous community is squeezed out of their ancestral home, we are one step closer to ecological collapse. The Dayaks taught me it's possible to have a different relationship with the forest, one of reciprocity. When you take from the forest, you give something back to nourish and care for the beings that come after you, both human and not. You see, we lose more than the forest. We lose a whole way of seeing the world and imagining ourselves within it.